Good evening, everyone. We will call tonight's meeting to order, beginning with an approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the agenda, please? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Sherwood. All in favor? And that is carried. Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Press your button. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I would like to declare a conflict. Sorry, guys, I wasn't. It is 13.11, the Optimist Club of Orangeville, and my issue is I'm a member of that organization.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Was there any other disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? I do have a couple, 14.1.4, 14.1.5, and being added out to the end of the bylaws is 18.5. All of those three items are related to the Orangeville BIA, and my daughter is now an employee of the BIA, so I will need to declare a conflict for those. We will now move into a closed session. The recommendation is that a closed meeting of council be held pursuant to Section 239, subsection 2 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of considering the following subject matters: the closed meeting minutes from May 26, 2025, the Access Orangeville closed meeting minutes from the 12th of June, 2025, which is personal matters about an identifiable individual, and 4.3 is the OLT discussion regarding 11A York Street, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before an administrative tribunal affecting the municipality or local board. Can I have a mover and a seconder to go into close? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that is carried. We are now in closed session. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome back. We are going to, just before we go into the singing of our national anthem, just coming out of closed, I wanted to remind, because we do it ahead of our closed session, that there were a couple of disclosures of direct and indirect pecuniary interest. Deputy Mayor Taylor, I'll turn it to you first for yours.
Good evening. Yes, I would like to declare a conflict on, and I'm just going to, 13.11, it's the Optimus Club issue, and my issue is I'm a member of that club, longtime member, and it would be incorrect for me to be privy to that, so.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I do have a couple of conflicts as well, 14.1.4, 14.1.5, and the bylaw that's related at 18.5 are all related to the Orangeville BIA, and my daughter is now an employee at the BIA, so I will declare a conflict for those three items. With that, then, we will move into the singing of our national anthem, and I will ask that if you're able, that you please stand.
O Canada, a home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. Tonight's meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. We did have a closed session earlier today, and the rise and report coming from closed is that the minutes of the May 26, 2025 closed council meeting be approved, and that council receive the 2025 June 12th Access Orangeville closed meetings for information, and that council endorse Access Orangeville's selection for the 2025 Accessibility Champion Award, and that council receive the information from our legal team regarding the OLT discussion related to 11A York Street, and that staff proceed as directed. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We do have some previous council meeting minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes of June 9th, 2025 and the council public meeting minutes of June 23rd, 2025 be approved. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Andrews. All those in favor? And that is carried. I will now turn the floor to Councillor Prendergast, who is going to share a great award that our community received. Councillor Prendergast, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. At the end of June, I had the opportunity to attend an awards gala where the town of Orangeville and Sustainable Orangeville were being awarded a Green Cities Award. We were the recipients of the Friends of the Credit Conservation Award for 2025 through the Credit Valley Conservation Authority. And this was in recognition of our significant contribution through stewardship actions, planting over 8,000 trees since the first iteration of the Sustainable Orangeville, I believe, action team. And we're aspiring for our 40% canopy cover, and also for being a leader in urban sustainability. The town's approach has been recognized as balancing ecological restoration with public education and civic engagement, all within the Credit River watershed. I would like to thank the collective efforts of the committee, previous iterations of the committee, town council, and staff who make it all possible. We are real leaders in environmental sustainability, and our efforts are being recognized. Thank you.
Congratulations. What a huge honor for our community. And the award is beautiful. As you can see in front of Councillor Prendergast, it's a beautiful award. So congratulations. Thank you for attending on our behalf, Councillor Prendergast. We will now go into the open forum portion. Any member of the public that's connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute, and that they have a maximum of 3 minutes. If anybody is on the line, it is a *9 to raise your hand. We've got a bit of a different process, and I don't believe there's anybody on the line, correct? No? Okay, wonderful. So we will move into the gallery. Was there anybody in the gallery who wished to speak at open forum? Mr. Jackson? And just as a reminder, we will need your name and address for the record, and we'll get you to pull the mic up to you.
Sorry. All right. Good evening, everybody. James Jackson at 50 Carlton Drive, Orangeville, Ontario. This most of you all know me. Mine's I'm bringing up into regards about Rotary Park, and about I'm also a little upset for the fact that what I was told today. I tried to get myself added to the agenda on Friday to talk about this, to put myself in the hot seat if you guys had any questions about when the presentation was brought to the Accessibility Committee. The thing that I'm upset about is that I was told that if you want to be added to the agenda, you have to do it 7 days prior to council. But yet council or the town, you only hand out the agenda 5 days before the committee. So how could I put in a submission when I don't even know what's on the agenda yet? That's one. Two is I was told that it didn't matter if the Accessibility Committee gave approval or liked the plan or whatever, that you guys are going to do whatever you want, and it doesn't matter of what we recommend or our opinions or our thoughts. It just made me feel as if, for the first time in my entire life, for the 11 years that I've been an advocate, the ambassador, and everything that I've been doing, it made me feel as if it's been for naught, and that it's worthless, that, yeah, in my opinion, means nothing. And trying to enhance the town for accessibility and for inclusion and for DEI and for even the we, I'm trying to help us to be more inclusive. And with Rotary Park, it's about to be a destination park. You're going to have baseball, soccer, tennis, pickleball, and eventually skating down there, and a water park and all this. So if this is a destination park, we must make it all inclusive for everybody. And that includes the different recommendations that I was even saying about with the pad, not doing wood chips and stuff. Like, we have drug problems. Imagine a kid stepping on a used drug needle buried within the wood chips. That's just part of my thing. So thank you very much.
So let me be clear, Mr. Jackson, on a couple of things. So the Accessibility Committee is an advisory committee to council, so they are not a decision-making body. That said, we bring things to the Accessibility Committee for input, for suggestions, for potential changes, and our staff do take that away and take your recommendations and implement them into potential outcomes. So the advisory committee is not a decision-making body. None of our committees are. So no committee has the ability to say no against a plan, to decline a plan. You can give feedback towards a plan, much like when we have development proposals that come to the committee, we bring them to the Accessibility Committee for accessibility suggestions. That means that the staff will then take those recommendations away and will implement what is feasible within the development. Same with the park. When we look at the park, we will look at all of the options that are there. Your feedback as an advisory committee will go back to staff and to the consultant that's hired to do the design, and those will be taken into consideration when they're putting together the final implementation plan. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Yeah, I can't let you say those things, Mr. Jackson, and not weigh in. I see you, and I see a whole bunch of other very familiar faces in this audience tonight that all contribute at a very high level to our town. We need everybody to do that. You and I have sat on numerous committees together, and you know that what you say comes back to this council and is thought through, and the feedback is taken for what it is, which is valuable and an important thing. So please don't say that. Please don't think that you're not valuable, and everybody else in here should know the same thing. And I know a lot of you. So it's really, really important that what you just said is not taken as fact, and that you personally know that that is not true.
I appreciate that, but I'm just saying of what was said to me and how it made me feel. That's all I'm saying, and I understand that you guys you're hearing our words and you're taking all that into consideration, and I appreciate that. I really, truly do. I was just upset about all of it, and my thought to all of it was that if we had an advisor to staff, to council, to the public and everything, then we wouldn't be where we are right now. We wouldn't have a lot of people upset and everything, because like this plan came to the Accessibility Committee as a forethought. That's how it was like a last minute thing when the development and all this other stuff was 4 months ago. So it could have come to us a lot earlier, and we could have looked at the plans and given suggestions. And I've even heard from the public. There's been a couple people who even said that when they saw the plans, they didn't look accessible to them, but there was only three things for them to choose from. So they made a choice and decision, but they told me that it doesn't look accessible.
So to be clear, Mr. Jackson, it came to the Accessibility Committee as soon as public consultation completed. That was the next thing that happened. So public consultation was to decide between 3 potential designs. Once the final one was decided from the public, we brought it to the Accessibility Committee at that time for accessibility's input on that component. So we went with the final design concept that was selected by the community, knowing that all of them meet AODA standards, but we would take the Accessibility Committee's input into finalizing those final plans. So it did come to accessibility not as an afterthought. It happened as soon as that consultation was done with the community. Councillor Sherwood?
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to see if the clerk could make a comment regarding the comments that Mr. Jackson made with regard to the agenda being published 5 days, but the requirement of having to have a delegation request 7 days. It did make sense what you said. You don't know if you want to speak on something if you haven't seen it on an agenda. Can you clarify the procedures, please?
Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Sherwood. Yes, so this change was made about, it was last year sometime, where we stopped having the last-minute delegation process and we implemented open forum instead. The last-minute delegation process was proving to be problematic because people were registering for open forum at the last minute, just before we had to have things published, submitting documents that had not gone through an accessibility check, so I'm sure you can appreciate that part, and which meant that our agendas, our addendum agendas, our last minute agendas weren't getting published on time. So the decision was made to go with the open forum process, and the open forum process provides anybody the ability to speak before council without registering, without going through any hoops, and you're given 3 minutes to speak to council without going through that process. So it was a replacement, not a takeaway.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, James. I do understand, before I call to the rest of open forum, that there were others who wanted to speak about Rotary Park. Just for consistency, and because I know that the consultant is on the line, I would like to have the rest of the folks who wanted to speak about Rotary Park, if you could come up next, please, as part of open forum. And we'll go one at a time, and again, we need your name and address for the record. And a reminder, name and address for the record, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay. So my name is Sarah Clark, and I live at 90 Rustic Crescent in Orangeville. I'm going to read from here so I can be respectful of everyone's time and stay on track here. I want to thank everyone for giving the opportunity to be able to share a few thoughts about the plans for Rotary Park. I've lived in Orangeville for 30 years, and this community has shaped who I am. I deeply care about its future. This is one of the reasons that I joined our Access Committee, because I believe in building a community where everyone feels seen, valued, and included. I'm proud to be here tonight with my fellow committee members and voices who share that vision. I bring both personal and professional experience to the committee. I'm a developmental specialist with over 20 years of experience in supporting individuals and families of all abilities. I'm a mom of 3, including a child who has a rare genetic syndrome. I'm also proudly neurodivergent and also live with a disability. These experiences have taught me that accessibility is not about checking a box or meeting a minimum standard. True accessibility begins by listening to those who have lived experience, not as a final step, but from the very beginning. In this case, the park plans were voted on before they were brought to the Accessibility Committee. That means that input from those with lived experience came too late to meaningfully help shape a design. Collaboration with people who understand the needs should be part of the initial planning process as well as throughout. If we want to build trust, respect, and better outcomes for everyone, we should always consider nothing about me without me. My advocacy is grounded in the belief that every single person should hold valued social roles and participate fully in ways that feel natural and dignified. The way that we design our spaces shape the roles that people hold in our community. When we create a park where a child who uses a wheelchair can play alongside their peers, or where a grandparent who may use a walker could feel like a child again, we reinforce the positive value role, such as friend, caregiver, neighbor, or maybe even the best grandma ever. These moments of inclusion may seem small to some, but they are deeply powerful. Parks are more than just a play structure in our community. They are places where we form connections, relationships grow, and our community comes alive. That's why it's important that every single person, not just some, can show up fully and feel like they're meant to be there. While the current park plans include some incredible and lovely features, there's still limited opportunity for those who use mobility aids to engage in play or as parents in caregiving roles. I encourage us to go beyond the surface level accessibility, even though this park may meet the standards. We should be asking ourselves, does this design support true inclusion? And does it reflect full belonging for everyone through shared normative experiences? I think we can do better. Let's create a space where belonging is not conditional. Accessibility and inclusion are the foundation of a community that truly cares, which I know every single person in this room does. A space that will bring people together and, as our town slogan says, has a dynamic future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, Kim, just your name and address for the record, and then a reminder that you've got 3 minutes.
Kim Van Ryn, 23 Williams Street, Orangeville, Ontario, and regarding the Access Orangeville Committee and the Rotary Park Playground, Mayor, Post, and Council. I'm so proud of the Access Committee members and our allies that you see here in chambers this evening. These are people with lived experience by way of having a child with a disability, supporting children and adults with disabilities and neurodivergencies, being wheelchair or mobility device users themselves, or being a disabled caregiver. We're not speaking for the neurodiverse and disabled. We are the neurodiverse and disabled people of this community, and therefore expect to fulfill our roles as community consultants and advocates. Universal design must be considered when hiring experts and designers for new built projects in Orangeville. I would highly recommend council members take the Rick Hansen accessibility training, which drives home the importance of universal design and meaningful access. I was not present at the last minute July 3rd Access Committee meeting. The meeting was not part of our schedule and was put in place to discuss the Rotary Park playground structure, which could have been brought to this committee months prior, but was not even mentioned. I've seen the slides and been briefed on the contents of the July 3 meeting. This town has spent thousands of dollars training staff from senior positions to frontline workers in the language used to speak about and with people who have physical and neurological differences. To see an expert consistently use the term special needs throughout a formal presentation, categorize activities by diagnostics, such as ropes are for autistic people and music is for those who have ADHD, having incorrect statistics about the number of disabled children in Canada while not presenting any other statistics such as caregiver disability rates was shocking to see in a town that has paid for neurodiversity training. This is not the kind of ideology or language we promote here, and yet tokenism has appeared in full force. Although the priorities of the town seem to be clouded at the moment, the priority of the Access Committee is clear. Everybody plays. Everyone swings. Everyone is safe. Everyone can take their kid to the park and access all parts of that park. If wood chips are laid down around the swings, they become inaccessible. Let's design and implement universally so we don't have to pay to fix it later. Accessibility, inclusion, and belonging is not a one-shot deal. It's not something we can vote for on the internet. It is asking people with lived experience first, not as an afterthought, as so clearly has been done here. Accessibility can be as simple as it is complex. It takes a conversation, many minds and hands. Let's make it happen. Let's make Orangeville a place where we all belong and where we all have the chance to play. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
3 minutes?
3 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Michelle Hartley. I live on Morgandale Crescent. I've been with the Accessibility Committee for 2 years, and I put the motion in to put this playground on pause. What we want you guys to know in the galley as well is that we are proud in Orangeville that this park is going to be a destination park. I've heard boasting about using it for tournaments and festivals and everything like this. The playground does not do us justice or represent Orangeville, and I'll explain why. I was at the committee meeting where they showed us the one design chosen by 51% of 1,000 people in our town. I should lay it on the record that I am not in favor of the proposal, but want to work together. I realize if you don't go ahead, this won't get done until next summer. It's unfortunate that the park at Rotary Park is already gone, so I feel the pressure of giving my hand stamp, which I will not do for this park. And when we were shown this park, it was a crisis urgent committee that got together. There was 5 of us, and they needed us to say yes to go ahead. We were not shown like a 3D park. We were shown a flat outline. And I asked the question at the beginning of a ramp that went up. And this lovely ramp was a bit wide, not very wide, it was a bit wide, and it went up to a gazebo at this playground. Lovely little things to make noise, and down low, little boards we can make noise. And you know where that ramp went to? Nowhere. It went to a gazebo of shade. And I put my hand up and I asked the consultant, who I'm not pleased with. Her responses to our questions were very derogatory, in my honest opinion. And there was a step, it might have been 2 steps, looking at a little layout. And she said, oh, there's a step there. Well, I have a child, let's say, and siblings that are able-bodied. We go to the park, the 4 of us. My little child in the wheelchair, and I don't want to come across rude, is expected to stop at the step and say, bye, guys, bye, I'll watch you. This is fun here in the shades gazebo. You know what? There's a gazebo over there too. I was very sarcastic then, like I am right now. So I'm going to show you this picture. It's my aunt. She was born in 1945. I'm from Streetsville. This picture is her, about 5 years old. She was a spokesperson. She had spinal bifida. My mom used to tell me how guilty she felt as the sister of Gail going to the park in Streetsville in the 40s and 50s and 60s, because Gail had to sit there and she would play. As I grew up in Streetsville, we only, as a family, went to a restaurant, Chung King, because they let us all go in through the kitchen. They let Gail go in through the kitchen because there was steps.
You're going to have to wrap up. You're at time right now, so if you can wrap up your remarks in the next.
I'd like to have this added to an agenda in the future so we can spend more time on it. We were not consulted ahead of time. We were the afterthought. The town did not approach us. This playground is not inclusive, it is not universal, and it is not a good representation of Orangeville.
Thank you for your comments. Was there anybody else that was wanting to speak about Rotary Park?
I just want to talk about accessibility, period.
Name and address for the record, and I want to keep to Rotary Park right now, just because I do have the consultant on the line that I want to allow the opportunity to speak.
Well, this is my only opportunity to speak. After this,
Okay, go ahead. Name and address, yeah, thank you.
19 Cedar Drive, Orangeville, Ontario. In the last 11 days since our last meeting, I have been to 41 parks in this town. And what I've seen is not very good. Playgrounds that have remained empty. The only parks that I've seen anybody in is anything with a splash pad. The other parks all remain empty. Accessibility parking at our three major parks, which is Finley, Every Kids, and Rebecca Hills. No accessibility parking at all. Now, we talk about parking is going to change at Alder, accessibility parking. What's being forgotten about, what about the fields and Bravery Park, where people with accessibility issues want to visit, but they can't park, they have to park up near the road where you enter by the arena. Why is there not accessibility parking spaces by the fields? And that goes the same for Lions Park. There's accessibility parking behind the building, but there's nothing near the fields. And I just don't understand this. Grandmothers, grandfathers want to go see their grandsons, granddaughters play sports or whatever, and they have to park out in the boonies to get anywhere near close to these spaces. And I think it's just terrible. We need more accessibility parking for people that need it. And this town is sadly lacking. I would say right now, there's not one accessibility spot in this town on town property that is the code. And that's shameful. Thank you. Any questions?
Councillor Stevens, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Post. I just want to, on behalf of Access Orangeville, I am the chair of the committee. I was not present at the last meeting. Unfortunately, I was ill. But I do want to thank James, Sarah, Karen, Kim, Michelle, and Rick for bringing everything to council tonight. I know it's not easy sitting out there and getting up there and voicing your concerns, but I do appreciate it. And I look forward to Ms. Savage and her team, along with Ms. Elliott, with their comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Savage, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Mayor Post. I know that we have Ms. Elliott on the line. Maybe if I could defer.
Sure.
She was there, and then I could chime in afterwards if there was any gaps.
Thank you. Ms. Elliott, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Mayor Post. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Janet Elliott. I'm based out of Wellesley, Ontario, and I've been building playgrounds for about 35 years. I hear the feedback that the Accessibility Committee is saying, and we did take into consideration some of the information we received from them. I guess what I want to point out is that the design that we submitted is 100% fully accessible by the CSA Z16-20. It meets all the Annex H requirements. We walked through we've dealt with a lot of accessibility committees, and we talked to a lot of parents and caregivers, and we have gotten products that we know are tried and tested in the industry, like the carousel, the rocking nest, the spinning chairs. So I do agree. They said that there was a lot of components that they did like, and those are from people that we've dealt with that are caregivers and do have disabilities. So I do apologize if I was, saying things, but I myself have a special needs child, and so I feel like I represented that well. I am all about inclusion and all about universal play, and they have a vision, but we put our best design forward in meeting all the criteria that were required. So I understand where they're coming from. We're very flexible. If there's any input that needs to be addressed into the design, we're willing to see that happen.
Thank you, Ms. Elliott. Ms. Savage, do you have anything else you wanted to add? No? Can we talk a little bit about some of the suggestions that they have made, and I know that there has potentially been some additions. Maybe Mr. Cosgrove wants to speak to it, or Ms. Savage, either one.
Through you, Mayor Post. Yeah, Charles, if you, Mr. Ugolini, I think, were you finished your 3 minutes?
I just have a couple more things I didn't mention. Accessibility parking at the dog park, 2 spots. But meanwhile, at the children's play parks, there's no accessibility parking at all.
Okay. Mr. Cosgrove, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Post, and to members of council. We are willing to work with suggestions coming forward. I have been in consultation with Ms. Elliott prior, and we are more than willing to help with creating something that, if they want some changes made, we can make some changes. One of the big ones that they wanted was a wheelchair swing, which we can look into doing that. It's not a problem. I can speak with Ms. Elliott. We can redesign certain locations of where this would fit within that playground structure. Some items may have to be removed. We can discuss all the items that would have to be removed, plus some additional ones that they may wish to see, and come back.
Thank you, Mr. Cosgrove. I appreciate that. And just to the committee members that are here today, I wanted to there we go. I wanted to express my thanks for all of you being here, and I wanted to reiterate the fact that this did come to the Accessibility Committee at the right time, because the concept that you got was simply that, it was a concept. So we wanted the final concept to be chosen, and then the individual components. It's not a final design that came to you. It was a concept that came to you, and all of the feedback that we hear from you. You hear that our consultant and Charles and Ms. Savage are all taking all those considerations and will come forward with a final design. Yes? Mr. Cosgrove, go ahead.
If we implement the recommendations that Accessible Orangeville requested, can we just show the committee, or do we have to wait till their June or September 11th meeting?
That's a good question. CAO Smith?
We would take council's direction on that. I think the committee has done what they're supposed to do, which is provide advice. Yep. I think that advice has been heard and listened to by staff. I would be comfortable with staff moving ahead. If council wants us to come back, we would. That may impact the ability to deliver the park this year, though. Right. So just reiterate, we've heard the advice. Yep. It is advice. We will take it. We will work with the consultant, make some changes, and with council's leave, we will continue the process without coming back.
Perfect. Thank you. Was there any thoughts from council? Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. I would just like to reinforce my support for one of the comments about bringing a wheelchair onto the small gazebo structure, and just the need for a second entry exit point for wheelchair users. I think that would be important. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions, comments? I think we're good. Okay, with that, I think that council is comfortable that we hear that staff is taking those comments from accessibility, and thank you all for speaking tonight, and I look forward to the next steps. Thank you. Next, people for open forum.
One more thing.
You need to turn on your microphone, please, Mr. Ugolini.
Lions Park is set to be worked on at the end of the month, and we have not seen that at our committee.
Mr. Cosgrove?
The Lions Park playground that's going in is just a re. We took out a playground structure that was approximately 20 years old, and we're putting back a structure of similar size and components with a few more accessible components in it. It's not a major renovation to the park. It's just we're re-ing a playground structure and putting a new playground structure in place of similar size.
Thank you, Mr. Cosgrove. Was there anybody else in the gallery who wished to speak at open forum? Mr. Castiglione, name and address for the record, please.
Trevor Castiglione.
Can you just turn on your mic there? Perfect, thank you.
Trevor Castiglione, 31 Morgandale Crescent, Orangeville, Ontario, on 9W3C6. I addressed Parks and Rec about our wonderful problem that many are having in town, sidewalks. Personally, I've had a piece of parcel, shall we say, of sidewalk for 14 years consecutively marked that is raised at certain times of the year, almost a foot high. Nothing's been done. I call yearly. I called again today. And today is what set me off finally. When I called Parks and Recs about these sidewalks, because we're getting sidewalks in certain areas of town and many people have expressed their concerns that didn't even need to be done. Nobody can answer to me what the standards are for replacing these sidewalks. Where is that standard? I'm being told by Parks and Rec, 10-year waiting list for certain areas, like to have sidewalks replaced, yet I've seen parts of, well, Parkview that were just done last year, and they're doing them again, just to add some gnarled metal at the end where people try and get up. I understand it's to make it easier to get up, but when you have sections that are heaving and completely in disarray, and when you've got sidewalk plows hitting those things, and it sounds like a bomb going off in the middle of winter, and nobody in the department can tell me what their standards are to have these sidewalks replaced. Like, who gets what? What, you gotta be special? That's all I have to say.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Koselak, because it's actually not Parks and Recreation, it's Infrastructure Services who takes care of sidewalks.
That's who I was
Mr.
talking to.
Koselak, go ahead.
Yeah, through your worship, and that's one thing I wanted to clarify. It's Public Works that does the sidewalk work, or if it's a larger project, it's our capital group. With the sidewalks, there's, I don't know if I'm too loud.
No, you're good, go ahead.
Okay. With the sidewalks, there's certain minimum tolerances that we have. Staff check them every year, go out and inspect it. That's why they will mark them up. I think historically, there was a maintenance log. We're trying to catch up over it the next few years. Our focus is on areas where there's arterial collector roads near schools, higher volume roads to get those done first, and then focus on more of the smaller local dead end roads and that type of thing. So that's our process. We have it marked down, and you'll see that they do go out and inspect it. So as I mentioned earlier, I can meet you later this week, take a look at your issue and get more details about it.
You have to turn your mic back on. Oh, there we go,
sorry.
we got it.
I completely understand what you're saying. We spoke before council this evening, but when I can't get an answer of what the standards are from staff, I don't know, I find that rather odd. And being told that because of COVID, there's a 10-year backlog for certain things, again, excuse if you ask me.
Mr. Koselak?
Yeah, through your worship, I don't think it's a COVID issue. I think it's one of those things that maintenance needed. There is a standard. I can give it to you later on. It's a certain elevation. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can give you the details.
CAO Smith?
Yeah, I just want to comment. I do hear occasionally that people are reaching out to staff multiple times, Parks and Rec and things like that. I would like to know who you're speaking with so that if you're not getting correct information, we can correct it. So I'll give you my card, and if you could email me specifically who you've been speaking with, because we don't want the cycle to continue that people are not getting the right information. So I'll do that. We can have a discussion offline. Thank you.
Unfortunately, at this time, most of my communication was with our former manager for the Parks and Rec, who's no longer with us. Whoever answers at Parks and Rec is who I was speaking to again today.
Okay, so we'll take that offline. Thank you, Mr. Castiglione, appreciate it. Was there anybody else in the gallery who wished to ask a question? Ms. Bradley, name and address for the record, please. And then you've got your 3 minutes, and the mic's already on for you.
Sylvia Bradley, 24 Faulkner Street, L9W2G6. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My question to the town is, why is the town building another pollinator garden to the tune of $6,000 when it can't maintain the current town pollinator gardens that we have? I'm referring specifically to the gardens that the Horticultural Society is looking after. There are currently 8 gardens maintained by very senior women from the Hort Society. The garden angels are aging out and can no longer do this work, physical work. They range in age from 70 to 85 and have been contributing free labor to the town for over 60 years. The town took over, because of this issue, the town took over the police station and Alder Street Gardens a couple of years ago. At that time, we asked that the town absorb one garden per year until all the gardens are under the town's management. That has not happened, and every time I ask, it's no budget, no resources. Yet, today, we have $6,000 for a new garden that no one is going to be able to look after. The priority garden is the ODSS garden. My husband and I looked after it for over 10 years until we no longer could do it. Now we have 2 elderly women there, and they will be resigning after this garden season. There will be no one to maintain this award-winning garden. Volunteerism is dying, and the young members are not stepping up. I had a letter today from Ms. Savage saying that they can't take over the garden because it's on school property. That's not so, because we already have a town bench, a town sculpture, a town heritage sign, and a donor sign that the town installed. And there are some of the land is school property, and when it was rebuilt in 2016, there was an agreement with the school board and the town under Ed Brennan was involved with it at the time. So I think if you took a look at that, you'd see that indeed the town can look after, maintain that garden. So I ask that they take that garden over. It's just steps from Tony Rose, where staff is maintaining the gardens there. After that, I'm hoping that they'll be able to take on a garden each year. One right here in Alexander Park, again, just steps from where the town is looking after the gardens. Additionally, as a suggestion, instead, I would like to see that those monies be allocated to maintaining what we have.
That's your 3-minute time.
Oh, okay.
So I'll get you to just wrap up quickly,
One
please.
thing, as instead of building another garden that no one can look after, I would suggest planting wildflower seeds. That would be a one-time deal, plant the seeds, no watering, no maintenance, no nothing, and you'd have pollinator gardens all over town for a fraction of the cost.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley.
Thank you.
Ms. Savage, I'll turn it over to you. I understand that you've had some conversation with members of the Horticultural Society, so I'll let you respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Yes, I spoke with Ms. Jill Cutter today. We had a great conversation. We had chatted about some of the challenges that the Horticultural Society is experiencing, similar to those conversations we had 2 years ago. We did, in fact, take over 2 gardens to relieve some of the pressure on the volunteer group. I have to go back in my notes and look about 1 a year. Our park staff are also experiencing similar pressures. I know I've tasked them lately with determining what are our priority gardens and what might we need to downsize or address because some of them are high maintenance. What I had suggested with Ms. Cutter today was we would meet, she suggested in the fall, she's graciously offered to collect everybody's availability. I'd like to meet with the Horticultural Society, including the executive members, and we can chat about short and long-term plans, knowing that this is going to be a recurring issue each spring.
Thank you, Ms. Savage. Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Was there anybody else from the gallery who wished to have a question or comment during open forum? Yep, you can come on up. We just need your name and address for the record, and then you'll have your 3 minutes.
Deb Sibian, and I'm from 139 Susan Street, Shelburne, Ontario.
Actually, we have in our procedural bylaw that only residents of the town of Orangeville can speak at open forum.
So even if I'm paying regularly for membership at a pool here, it doesn't count then?
No, that's correct.
Okay, well,
that's
thank you very
correct.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, if you send me an email, we can absolutely take care of that. Okay. If you can resend, if I haven't responded to you, I may not have received. Okay, thank you. Was there anybody else who wished to ask a question or make a comment? I know that you would like to as well, Ms. Linebeer, and you are also not a resident, so I appreciate you being here, but unfortunately the same rules apply. Was there anybody else within the gallery who wished to ask a question? If not, we will move on. Thank you very much. Okay, so we will now move into the public delegations and presentations. We will start with Michael Chesney from the Optimist Club of Orangeville, a request for funding to expand the shed facility. At this time, I'll ask that the Deputy Mayor step out as he has declared a conflict. You can use my office, Deputy Mayor.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Michael Chesney. I live at 288 Lisa Marie Drive.
And a reminder for you as a delegation, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
So the timer will sound.
I'm here on behalf of the Optimist Club of Orangeville, and the purpose of tonight is to seek support from the town to help us expand on the shed, as Mayor Post had mentioned. We presently store in this facility all of our Christmas in the Park. And as you may know, for anyone here who's attended Christmas in the Park, it is near and dear to many people during the months of December. And where we're at right now is we have our large displays that we had to now put off-site in storage locations. And they're in various different locations. And these storage facilities are on borrowed time. The challenge that we run into these issues is that moving these large displays back and forth does incur risk to damage, and also we do need to do maintenance. So it's hard to do maintenance on these pieces that are located outside of our reach, and it's also something that is a requirement. So facilitating the centralization of all of our displays in one location is really critical, and at least supports the continued success of Christmas in the Park. So displaying, bringing all of the facilities under one area, minimizing the damage, and also just the stress of trying to deal with negotiating for additional space elsewhere. It's taxing. So what we're asking to do is if we can get your support on the existing shed facility. Now, just some history. Back in 2015, the town helped erect the current shed facility. It is 1,200 square feet. We're looking for an additional expansion of 450 square feet. So this is an extension that's going to take place to the east of that existing building. So we would reutilize some of the existing materials like the metal facade facings on it, and we would end up doing some clearing out of the brush that's there. So that is going to be really the opportunity for us in terms of maintaining a successful, sustainable town project. Now, what we're looking for is funding for up to $50,000. So this is where we're starting to look at some quotes. I've got some already in, and so we feel comfortable with that number for the moment, and I don't anticipate that that should change. Just talking briefly about the benefits to the community, just allowing Christmas in the Park to continue to succeed has a lot of merit. We use a people counter. The people counter, if you read the deck, has about 21,500 people that actually go through that park every December. That's not small, it's significant. And we know that it actually provides a lot of good opportunity and benefits to the town, both in the investment with products and restaurant use. So we know that there's opportunity there for that. And the fact that, back if you think about what we as an Optimist Club do, we're a club of doers. And we are a friend of youth. So basically, we do a lot for the youth in this community. The Christmas in the Park helps with some of our fundraising initiatives to support those programs that we do on an annual basis. Back in 2020, when we had COVID, if you recall, we actually dressed up the park and lit it up, even though there was no access and we were all restricted. That meant a lot to a number of people in town, especially when you're struggling with enclosures with COVID and not having the Christmas spirit to share with everyone. So, from that perspective, it helps. The Optimist Club also, cherishes Casey Gardens, which is a park that we maintain dearly. If you looked at the deck, we've been doing all kinds of improvements to it since 2004 till present. That's us. So we do a lot of in-kind volunteer work on our hours that we put in to help maintain it and continue supporting its success throughout. So what we're looking for is your help in supporting us for expanding the shed. Again, it's 450 square feet, and it would be ideal if we can do this before and complete it before the snow falls, unlike I had that challenge from last time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do see some questions popping up from members of council, so I will start with Councillor Andrews.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, and through you, Mr. Chesney. Really nice to see you. I also would like to recognize the other members of the Optimist Club who are in attendance. Your work is certainly recognized for those of us in the community who appreciate what happens not only during Christmas in the Park, but other times of the year at Casey Gardens.
You really do a tremendous job, and not only at Casey Gardens, but some of the other activities that are highlighted in the report. Having had an opportunity to review this particular request, I think it is one that is going to support not only tomorrow, but in the future, the demands that exist. The thoughts of, the cost that this particular project is pegged to be, allocated at. I think what you've done is you've done your due diligence to find, the appropriate costing to move this forward. Having said that, where would we see the funds coming from? Would this be something that comes from our community grant process, Your Worship, or would this come from other sources of the budget? I think that's really the question I have that has to be asked internally.
Well, I think that's the interesting piece, and I do have some comments and thoughts on how we could move forward. The trouble that we have, I think, right now is that our 2025 budget is, of course, already completed and in progress. So our community grants have already been allocated and spent by our local community groups, and our capital plan has already been completed for 2025 as well. So, you don't have to sell me on the benefits of Christmas in the Park or on all the great work that the Optimist Club does, because we're all, I think all of us at this table are very aware of that. I think where the challenge comes for me is that we don't have an unlimited funding envelope to work with, and it wouldn't be fair for other service clubs and organizations who also have similar needs. And I know that it's time sensitive to you, but I think that it does create a little bit of a problem for us to go off of the budget cycle to find that much money to contribute to a community organization, and not saying that you don't do great work, because we all know that you do. I think my motion at this point, and I won't put one forward yet, we still have comments from the community, or from the council, sorry, but I think my thought at this point would be that we refer for you to work with staff to really put together a strong collaboration agreement that we can move forward with. We've done similar suggestions like this in the past with the senior center and with other, where we own the land and you own the building, and we're trying to kind of figure out how we can best support you. And I think staff could then have the opportunity to make it part of the capital program for 2026 for council's consideration at budget time. And budget time will come up in late November and December as we move through that. So it wouldn't have you building until next spring potentially, as long as it's approved by council. But that was kind of where my thought was going. But I'd love to hear from, Councillor Andrews, if you have something else to say before I turn it over.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, I just wanted to ask Mr. Chesney, how much of a pressure point does that have? And I know possibly what the answer is going to be, we're already maxed out in your space, but there is a process that we have to follow and to find the funds to support something like this, or collaboratively, departmentally.
I think the opportunity again for us is minimizing our risk that we have sometimes with the movement of these large displays. As I mentioned earlier, the issue is that you wouldn't want to have to start near the wintertime like I had back in 2015. That was a really risky undertaking, and it worked out well, fortunately. So yes, if we have to wait till spring, then so be it. I mean, it's not the end of the world. We'll manage and endure as we have to, and we're resilient, so we're optimistic.
Yes.
We like that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, and thank you for all the great work you do. It's really appreciated. I have two quick questions. The first one is, if you do the expansion, will it affect the parking at the senior center at all?
The only effect it'll have is temporary, just in terms of the course of construction. But no, absolutely not. There will be no impediments to the parking whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. My second part, it's a shame that the town doesn't have any extra space that we could let you use until such an expansion is done. I don't know if it's possible, or in Public Works or anything, I don't know, but I'll leave that to staff. Thank you.
Ms. Savage, do you have anything that you wanted to comment on that at this time?
Sure, thank you, Mayor Post. Councillor McIntosh, I'm looking at the team. I know that we've recently taken inventory of our space and there isn't anything, but what I do know is in a previous role, I know that the Paul Grave Rotary Club, they were able to get sea containers donated. I know we need building permits, but we could work with the Optimist Club to have a temporary sea container there until we're ready to go and build. and then would be delighted to work with the Rotary Club to develop a capital project request for the 2026 budget.
That's amenable.
Okay, that sounds like a good solution as well. Councillor Sherwood, I will turn it to you.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Through you, I also want to comment on, thank you for everything the Optimists Club have done. At this point, I'm going to have to stand firm that I wouldn't be able to support a 50,000 ask right now because we've gone through the budget process, and I'm very adamant that we must continue to follow the budget process. However, I'd be very much in support of it if it comes as a capital project next year. However, I do want to ask the General Manager Savage, I believe this would probably be a capital budget under facilities. Do we have any magic pot that has an extra 50,000 in there, even because we're already like halfway into the year, and I'm just hoping you can magically find it. If not, then we'll have to go through the budget process.
That was going to be my next ask.
Ms. Savage.
Putting her on the spot.
Thank you, Mayor Post. That's fine. Councillor Sherwood, I do have the treasurer to my right, but I think I'm speaking on behalf of all of us saying that if there were any project that was underfunded or under budget, then that money would go back into a reserve, and at that point, we would need to return to council to request the funding because it is completely different scope of work. So at this point, I'm not aware of any additional funding from or a surplus from other projects. Your best bet is to go through the 2026 capital budget program.
So just to follow up, Your Worship, so unfortunately, I wouldn't support it coming out of our reserves, not at this time, but I will definitely support it during budget process for 2026.
Okay, was there any last questions? I don't see anybody else in the queue, but we're all good. So if I could, then my motion would be to direct staff to engage in further conversation with the Optimist Club to explore opportunities for collaboration on a capital project. I do like the idea of a CCAN being used temporarily. I think that that's potentially a good solution, and that staff be directed to bring forward that recommendation for council's consideration as part of the 2026 capital budget program. Does that work as a motion? Councillor Sherwood seconding it. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? And that is unanimously carried. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let me get Deputy Mayor. Okay, now up next we have the Orangeville Detachment Board 2024 Annual Report. I'd like to invite up Jacqueline Weatherby, a member of the Orangeville OPP Detachment Board. Welcome, Ms. Weatherby. It's good to see you, and we will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nice to see everybody today. Thanks for the time on the agenda. As Mayor Post mentioned, my name is Jacqueline Weatherby, and I'm a member of the OPP Detachment Board. I serve on the board with Your Worship Lisa Post, Councillor Taylor, Ian McSweeney, Warren Maycock, Grant Armstrong, and we are supported by the very wonderful Mary Lou Archer. We're also obviously supported by Inspector DiPietro from the detachment. Under Section 68(1)(f) of the Community Safety Policing Act, most of which came into force on April 1st, 2024, we are required to provide an annual report to Orangeville Town Council regarding the policing provided in our community by the Dufferin Detachment of the OPP, and so we are here today to do just that and had submitted our report in advance. Before I dive in, as a resident, I just wanted to call out two very outstanding members of our team. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with Ian McSweeney. However, his contributions definitely rise above and beyond for us on the board, but also on policy development in this area for the community, the zone, and probably likely the province, even though they might not admit it. We're very lucky to have him. Also, Mary Lou Archer has done so much to make sure that this transition from the Orangeville Police Services to the OPP has been as smooth as possible from a procedural perspective, a grant writing perspective, and I have a tremendous amount of personal respect for that. So thank you to both of them. On behalf of the Detachment Board, I'll provide a quick update on the key highlights of the report and leave some time for questions. Assuming everyone has read the document, we apologize for the length. I'll run you through the highlights for this year. So part 1 of the report covers the local initiatives that the board has prioritized in consultation with the detachment commander on items like budgeting and community engagement. Crime information described in Board Policy D3, but not included in Part 2, and any additional information Town Council has requested is in the report, including the latest board action plans and registers, and the latest Board General Service Standards work plan. We would also like to note the recent release of the 2025 to 2028 Dufferin County Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan by Dufferin County Council under CPSA S254. Council received this directly from the county. Part 2 is an operational report that includes provincial and local information on policing provided by the ministry, the OPP, and the detachment commander. This includes the 2023 to 2025 strategic plan issued by the minister, the 2023 to 2025 Dufferin Detachment Local Action Plan prepared by the detachment commander, the 2024 annual progress report prepared by the Dufferin OPP detachment released a few weeks ago in June, the OPP Commissioner's 2023 annual report and media release, and the 2024 to 2027 strategic plan for Ontario's Inspectorate of Policing issued in 2025. That is our update on the report submitted, and we're happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you so much, Ms. Weatherby. Councillor Andrews, I'll start with you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Weatherby. Thank you, and the other members of the police board. Thank you for all that you've done and your attendance here this evening. I read everything that was included, including the attachments that we had to dive into. So, Chair Taylor, impressive. Very impressed. As connected to Family Transition Place, as a former member of their education group, I'm so impressed to hear and see about the GBV, which is Gender-Based Violence Initiative. So important. Education is critical in our community, and supporting of that is really important. Here's where I have a comment, and this is, again, not targeted in any way, shape, and form to the police board. There is a perception from members of our community at times we don't have visibility of our OPP.
Okay.
At the same time, I have seen more OPP in our community than ever before. So I don't know where the disconnect is as opposed to be my observation versus what I'm hearing anecdotally from members of our community. So how, as part of the action plan, how are you going to correct that perception?
I mean, I think we can never have enough policing. We hope that we wouldn't need it, but the demand is definitely there. This is a question I think we ask ourselves often as a board, and it is something that is just a visible community issue as a community goes through a natural transition of having a owned and managed police service to a contract with a larger authority. We have recently sent out a request to a number of community organizations, some of which are here today, that we're hoping will come to the board and help us understand how their relationship is forming with the OPP visibility. This is our sort of community engagement action plan. We've received a couple of requests so far, so we'll have some voice at the next meeting, but it's something that's on our mind. We've also been working with the inspector on how we can sort of increase community policing events and engagement in the community, that sort of thing. So I think as we come to our first year of sort of full maturity as a board, you'll start to see more plans loop into the future action plans. And I'll defer to the other members if they'd like to add.
Yep. Give me a second.
Do you need to kick me out so that you can come in? I was just going to make a comment. Thank you for that, because again, you know, from this side of the table, we see the visibility. You know, we have the opportunity to engage with the community involvement officers. I'm not sure what their official title is. So I see their commitment. I see the visibility, but there's that other side. And so I appreciate your comments, and I'll let the other members of the police board make their comments.
Okay, go ahead if you can request. Can you hit your mic off and then re-request? Thank you. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Very good. We have new technology tonight, and at some point I have to host this meeting, so wait for disaster to strike when I have to leave this portion. But I did want to pick up on that, and I thank you so much for bringing it forward. The question that makes me want to speak to is the perception that we don't see the police. And candidly, we get the reports, we can see where people spend their time, and by people I mean the officers. We see where the charges are, where the time is spent. And just so everybody knows, like these are on film, like you can watch these episodes, not that I'm suggesting it would be exciting by any stretch, but the board has asked specifically that question to the inspector. I would suggest that council probably should have the inspector come and, he can answer that himself at some point. I would say that in my time, this is the most professional, engaged inspector that we've had in our time with OPP. I am a big proponent of this individual. He's fantastic. We have asked for information, and the OPP will not share what their allocation is of people for a variety of reasons. And the main reason is they don't want the bad guys to know when they've got the resources, where the resources are. But it would still be a worthwhile conversation to have with the inspector, and at some point we can have him come to council and go through it. But I just wanted to make the point that the board has asked that exact thing, and it's hard to determine, and it's hard to pinpoint where they are and what they're doing, but I can tell you they are catching the bad guys. So it's productive.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Stevens.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. This probably should go to Chair Taylor or maybe Vice Chair McSweeney. Does the Orangeville Board meet with the other municipalities that are in Dufferin County? And if so, can you expand on maybe some of the initiatives that are happening? Because rural and municipal is obviously different policing, so just wondering if you can expand.
Vice Chair McSweeney may have some thoughts on this as well, but we do meet on a regular basis with them, and it's not necessarily a time meeting. It is at the will of the chair. Frequently, it's Member McSweeney and myself who's pushing to have these meetings. They're also different, because Shelburne is urban, and we're urban, and everybody else is rural, and the difference between what the needs are, like, Melanchthon doesn't really care about Orangeville's issues. Well, I'm sure they care, but I mean, they're not pertinent, right? They're not pertinent at all. So sometimes it's hard to have those discussions, but we do have a biannual meeting with them where the inspector joins. Members of the Police Services Board can be there for sure, but mostly what's happened is the vice chairs and the chairs join, and they have conversations about how we can have meetings. There's some inefficiency to the whole thing because the inspector has to go to every meeting. So he goes to each regional meeting, and then he goes to the one that we have as a whole. So really, we want him policing, not necessarily with us, but there's no way around it. That's the way the system is set up. I would call out inefficiency, but I don't have a solution for you at this time, and it wouldn't be for Orangeville to bring forward. It's a provincial decision that would happen. But we did condense the boards, right? We were 6, now we're 4. So.
Was there any other questions from anyone? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Weatherby. Thank you for being here today. We appreciate your time. Okay, up next, we do have our 2025 Asset Management Plan. I would like to invite Akil Ali and Aman Singh from SLBC Inc., who I believe are joining us in person. Yes, perfect. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your time today for joining. My name is Akil Ali with SLBC Inc., and I'm pleased to present the findings from the town's Asset Management Plan initiative. So from my understanding, there is quite a packed agenda today, so we will keep things sort of sweet and concise. In terms of our overall agenda, we'll do a quick introduction of the project to give you a little bit of background of the asset management plan itself. Then we'll dive into the highlights of the plan, particularly related to the outputs of state of infrastructure, levels of service, the asset management strategy, the financing strategy, and then the plan improvement opportunities. We'll then end with some closing remarks and open the floor for any questions. This slide here outlines the town of Orangeville's asset management journey to date. It's one that I've had the pleasure to be a part of since July 2016, when the initial asset management plan was developed for the town. Following that, in November 2019, after the release of the Ontario regulation, the town did develop and approve an asset management policy. Following that, in July 2022, the core asset management plan was developed for the assets that you see on the screen here. In 2024, the non-core assets, or the remaining assets for the town, were completed. In December 2024, so just about 7 months ago, an updated policy was developed and approved to reflect lessons learned from the previous policy, as well as new practices and alignment with all updated strategic plans and priorities. And of course, now in July 2025, we are developing and presenting the proposed level of service asset management plan. What you see on this slide here is the OREG 588-17 requirements. And the requirements, in summary, prescribe some key sections to be included as part of the asset management plan. Those are the state of infrastructure, levels of service, life cycle management strategies, the financial strategy, and then implementation and key assumptions. One thing that's important to note here is that the OREG is prescribing a 10-year outlook of asset lifecycle needs, meaning it's really prompting municipalities to look at 10-year capital forecasts and also longer-term operating forecasts. Many municipalities across the province are doing things sort of year by year as opposed to doing that longer-term outlook. So this slide here summarizes the assets included within the 2025 asset management plan, as well as their cost by service area. So the overall replacement cost of all the assets for both core and non-core infrastructure is approximately $1.17 billion. For this plan, there's also a number of changes in comparison to the previous plans that were presented to council. That includes the addition of natural assets. So street trees and park trees have been incorporated in this iteration of the plan. There's also improved data quality. So asset data is being refined through updated inventories, condition assessments and initiatives, and other key studies such as the recent roads needs study that was completed. And last but not least, in this iteration of the plan, we're now looking at proposed service levels, helping to clarify performance expectations and inform future investment strategies. So the report that was circulated is broken down into 8 key chapters, which have been formulated based on industry best practice, as well as OREG 588-17 reporting requirements. So we'll get into the key outputs for the chapters that were shown in the previous slide. The first one is the state of infrastructure. And this slide here gives us a high-level snapshot of the town's infrastructure, both in terms of asset value and the condition of those assets. So based on our analysis, over 72% of the town's assets are in very good, or fair condition, which reflects positive or strong state of good repair across the system generally. Nearly 24% of the assets of the town are in poor or very poor condition, what you see in the orange and red there, which indicates a growing renewal need and potential service risks if left unaddressed. Generally speaking, the town has already identified replacement and renewal projects for a lot of these assets, causing them to reset back to very good condition once those projects have been addressed. One final thing about the state of infrastructure is that we have about 4% of assets in unknown condition, which highlights the need for ongoing data collection and assessment. So this is a bit of a busy image here, but what's shown is a level of service framework, which is being used to define sustainable service delivery for the town. Essentially, you read it from left to right, and this framework aims to provide a line of sight from strategic priorities through the levels of service, costs, and then risks. Level of service and related targets have been developed and can be found within each service area within the asset management plan. These targets drive life cycle activities such as growth, upgrade, renewal, and operations and maintenance decisions. What you see on this slide here is a risk map. How you read the risk map is that assets that fall within the red are very high-risk assets, and those assets are generally at or past their service life. On the bottom left of the risk map, as you get into the blue or green zone, those are assets that are in low or very low risk. These assets, you may elect to delay their replacements or just simply continue to do status quo on them. So overall, 12.4% of the assets at the town are in very high risk, and those consist of what's shown on the slide here. Those are high volume roads in very poor condition, fire facility, asset components, IT server equipment, some of the ponds, and then some other facility components. Although the town has these high-risk assets, again, I just wanted to reiterate that many have been identified within the capital plan for either replacement, rehab, or repair. We'll now get into the asset management strategies, and we'll start with growth and expansion. And growth and expansion is essentially activities being done to provide a net new asset that didn't previously exist, or an expansion to an existing asset. So based on our analysis, the growth and upgrade needs forecast about $44.9 million over the next 10 years for the town. And there are some significant growth projects that have been identified as part of the capital plan, such as the new fire station, the expansion to the park's operation facility, some new traffic signals, trunk sewer capacity increases, and of course, road widening and extension projects. What's important to note here is that without the adequate funding for growth projects, service level demands and infrastructure pressures will not be met, potentially impacting economic delivery and service delivery. So next we'll get into operations and maintenance. Operations are just regular activities that are done to provide service, such as inspections and cleaning. Maintenance is things such as minor repairs or small component replacements for assets. So this slide here shows that the operational needs are expected to increase from $32 million per year, which is what the current amount is in 2025, to $42.5 million 10 years out in 2034. No inflationary increases have been applied to this analysis. And really the key here is that as you're increasing the number of assets in your portfolio, these assets will require investment into operating, as more assets means more labor, more material, more fuel, more everything. So last, for the life cycle activities, we'll look into renewal. So these are activities that return the asset to its original service capability. So just a like-for-like replacement, or a major rehabilitation to a road, or a bridge. So for the renewal forecast, we looked at two scenarios. The first one was the cost for renewal to maintain the current service level and backlog from growing. And the second one examines the impact to the town's infrastructure based on existing funding levels. So for the first scenario, the maintaining the current level of service, we've identified a renewal need of $38.5 million under this chart. And you'll notice a significant spike in 2025, which is driven by the existing renewal backlog that has accumulated due to past underinvestment. So when we compare the renewal backlog to the funding in place, And again, the red line here shows the renewal budget of $19.1 million per year. The overall infrastructure gap is approximately $19.4 million per year to maintain the current service levels for these assets. So that was the first scenario for renewal needs. The second one is the existing funding scenario, where we look at the impact to the town's infrastructure based on existing funding levels. As you can see on the chart here, the condition of the town's assets over the next 10 years is expected to have a slight deterioration. As you can see in the graph here, the amount of red and orange does grow over the next 10 years based on existing funding. And essentially, if the town maintains its current funding levels, it will continue to fall further behind and set itself up for higher risks, such as emergency repairs and a higher cost of overall service delivery long-term. So in terms of the different funding sources that the town has in order to help with this infrastructure gap, there are certain things such as property taxes, user rates, development charges, mainly for growth projects, as well as grants, subsidies, and third-party recoveries. And the town does apply both reserves and debt to fund these projects for asset management. For options of closing the infrastructure gap, really there are just two levers that the town can deploy. One is increasing revenues. So that's things like increasing property taxes, increasing rates for water and wastewater, looking at more grants and revenue sources, increasing user fees, and then also looking at neighboring municipality agreements. The town can also look at debt capacity and reserves, such as debenture funding and reserve management. On the other side of the spectrum, you could also reduce expenditures, so defer renewals and prioritize based on risk, reduce service levels or adjust as appropriate, minimize the size of the asset portfolio by limiting the growth, look at other non-infrastructure solutions such as management strategies and policies. And recently, as an example, the town has adopted a fleet management strategy to help rationalize and improve the cost efficiency of fleet, as well as different work from home policies to manage facility usage. And then last but not least, exploring opportunities for more efficient and cost-effective delivery. Okay, so in terms of improvement opportunities, as asset management is a evolving and ongoing initiative for improvement. For the state of local infrastructure, the town is recommended to regularly update their asset registers, their condition and state of good repair needs. For level of service, aligning the plan and structure to the budgeting process, as well as delineating costs to achieving the proposed service levels that were defined. For risk management, incorporating risks into investment decision-making. For life cycle management, full integration of life cycle needs with risk and level of service frameworks. And then for the financing strategy, just continuing to improve alignment between the plan itself, budgets, and the 10-year capital forecast. The town is also undergoing a citywide implementation, which is a technology initiative to help improve asset management planning. And it is expected that the overall maturity and data gaps for the plan will be improved quite a bit just based on that initiative. So in terms of next steps, the plan is legally obligated to be updated every 5 years and reported back to council, as well as an annual progress is due by July every year on the status of implementing the plan. And then for closing remarks, this plan does meet the requirements of OREG 58817, and looking ahead, the town will continue to refine and update the plan to ensure it remains responsive to emerging risks, regulatory changes, community expectations, and also operational realities. So I'd like to thank you again for your time today, and through the chair, I'll open the floor for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ali. We very much appreciate the work that you've put into this. It was a very long report, but an excellent report that really covered the state of our assets. So I appreciate that. I do have some questions from councillors. We will start with Councillor Andrews.
Well, that's very kind. I guess I just happened to press the button at the right time there, getting into the queue. Through you, Your Worship, thank you for your report, and I echo also Mayor Post's comment. This was a thorough report, one that I really enjoyed reading, but it also concerned me. What's interesting, my previous world, I went through the exact same exercise. All these charts I'm certainly familiar with. I'm going to quote something from page 69 here. Town service levels are expected to deteriorate over the next 10 years based on existing funding. Infrastructure backlog is expected to increase over the next 10 years. Renewal budget is less than the cost required to maintain current level, service levels, meaning that we're behind, as I call it, the 8 ball. And here we are from a municipal perspective. When I heard the word or took a look at, the idea of property taxes, I don't even want to go down that path because this is how we fund some of this. Having said that, the risk behind some of these deficiencies with that almost 30%, there's those elements that are in the 24% range and the 4% that we have no idea what the state is, concerns me as not only a member of council, but also as a resident in this community. Where I'm going with this is that, we have this, I wouldn't call it a shortfall, but we have this obligation of $19.1 million that we have to find as a baseline to embed into the budget to support what we have today. My concern is the potential decrease in service levels. And when I hear service levels, it's what the general public expects from every single one of our municipal departments, be that from public works, infrastructure services, parks and rec, and so on and so forth. So if we don't hit that baseline, all we're going to see is a reduction in our ability to service the needs of our growing community. Secondly, we may have some catastrophic failures that could be a part of what we see in this report. So it's more of a comment as opposed to asking for you to come back with some solutions. But the one thing that I was also intrigued that I didn't hear you say, you talked about inflation, but we have a report that comes from our finance department a little bit later in the consent agenda about the evolving word tariff. Was any of that even included as part of this report? Because we have hidden costs, we have costs we don't even know that could, changing this figure dramatically depending on how it's all negotiated at the federal level and impacts us at some point. I guess that would be my only question I have at this point.
Mr. Ali?
Yeah, through the chair, thank you for that question. And just getting back to your first point, like you acknowledged, the goal of the asset management plan is not to solve the infrastructure gap, but rather to identify that it exists and then also call out any risks associated to it. To be honest, this is something that's been a challenge for almost every municipality in Ontario, and I don't think it's going to be solved in my lifetime, maybe even your lifetime as well. So in terms of the second point of the question regarding the tariffs, so the tariffs were not considered within the context of the asset management plan. Our analysis really is based on year-end 2024 data, and a lot of the impacts to tariffs were kind of being brought into the equation a little bit later into the 2025 period. That being said, as mentioned at the end, the asset management plan is regulated to be updated every 5 years, and then the update to council to be done every year. So that's an opportunity for town staff to incorporate potentially any ongoing external circumstances that might impact the results that were determined.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Not necessarily a question, but just commentary on the overall piece. I'm glad you just said it. You beat me to the punch that, most towns in Ontario are having an infrastructure deficit. It's not new. It's ongoing. We just went through the same exercise at the county for anybody that didn't get to see. The county's way behind as well. The thing that causes me urgency, well, first of all, makes me feel good is that we have the report and we understand where the issues are. And to be honest with you, when I looked at it, I thought, okay, it's sort of where I expected that we would be in terms of the red, which is good news. The sad thing is Orangeville has what I would call a problem. It could be a perceived problem or it could be a real problem, and that is we are having a bit of a financial crisis, right? Not necessarily at the town, but as people who live in the town, the biggest complaint that I get, and I know all of you get, is taxes. So to fill this ongoing, I just think that the public needs to really use your critical thinking skills and think about what this means ongoing. Anybody who says that they're going to freeze taxes or decrease taxes is probably not giving the whole story of what's happening. These costs are real, these costs are growing in magnitude, and if we don't address them, they'll continue to rise even further because then you'll be even more behind and you're going to have to react. I was going to ask yourself, and I'd love to ask the most senior person in the room, not by age, just in experience, what they thought, like what the two of you thought that should happen. So CAO Smith and yourselves, like what is the mentoring for the rest of us as we go forward? We know what the issue is, but how do we get through?
CEO Smith?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I had written down just a few minutes ago is we are not alone. So, that's an acknowledgement. I can't think of a single municipality in Ontario that isn't in a deficit situation. So that's reality. So there's a few things top of mind. One is we need to continue to lobby with the provincial and federal government to change the funding strategy for municipal government. You've heard, when we talk about budget, how 9 cents, I think, of every tax dollar comes to the local municipality, and we maintain most of the infrastructure in the country. I think the other part of it is thoughtful decisions going forward. Council made some really positive approvals during our budget process to invest in infrastructure, things like our stormwater management. We know that's a critical risk. We know it's not going to be fixed overnight. We know it's going to take a couple of decades to get there, but get there we will. Same thing with sidewalks. Our finance team is developing our long-range financial strategy. It might be called something but different, but that's what I call it. And that puts all the pieces in place to say, hey, if we're responsible and how do we do this, how do we pay off the mortgage is the term that I use. If you have a plan and you stick to the plan, eventually you will do that. I think this council as well should be recognized for some of the tough decisions you've made. Tony Rose Pool, as an example, it was a very difficult decision to pause that. It's the right decision. When you see things like this, putting more money that we don't have puts us at risk going into the future. So we'll continue to bring those things to council. Our finance team, led by our treasurer, has got some strategies in terms of when debt is paid off, how do we roll that over to invest in other ways. So I finally say that taxes are one vehicle. I am delighted to hear you say we're not going to freeze taxes. I think that's misguided. But I do think in Orangeville we need to be responsible with our tax increases. And I think you'll see that when we come forward with our 2026 budget.
Thank you, CEO Smith. Mr. Riley, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I believe my opinion was just asked as well. So the only thing that really comes to mind from my perspective is intergenerational equity. So that's kicking the can down the road. If we're not paying for certain things, or this backlog right now, or this infrastructure gap, eventually someone's going to pay for it, whether it's our kids or our grandchildren. So that's really like all I'd say from that side, is that if we're not paying for it, somebody else will down the line.
Thank you very much. Was there any other questions or comments from council? Okay, with that, we do have the report following 13.2.2.1, which is the 2025 Asset Management Plan. The recommendation is that report CPS 2025-58, 2025 Asset Management Plan be received and that council approve the 2025 Asset Management Plan as presented, and that council direct staff to develop and present an asset renewal funding strategy for council approval as part of the 2026 budget process. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor. And that is carried. At this time, I'm going to ask that we take a 10-minute break and we will come back. So we will see everybody back at 8:50. Thank you, Mr. Ali, for being here.
I did. My screen shut off. Let me,
Test, test.
No, 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 too much. A little bit this way. Yeah. Perfect. Yep.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are now going to move into item 13.2.3, which is our recreation facility allocation and affiliation policy. I'd like to welcome Ms. Doherty, the Manager of Recreation and Events, to do your presentation. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor Post and members of council. It's my pleasure to be here this evening to present to council the recreation facility allocation and affiliation policy. I won't ask you to say that 10 times fast. This presentation will define allocation and affiliation, the goals of the policy, and the process that was undertaken to complete the draft policy for council review and consideration this evening. Where am I, Jerry? There we go. You want me to control H or Jerry? Sorry, we're just working through this. That's perfect, Jerry. First, let's look at defining allocation and affiliation. For those of you not familiar with the recreation world jargon, allocation is the process of equitable and fair distribution of the town's recreation facilities based on supply and demand and priority users. Affiliation is the relationship between two organizations that are connected for a benefit, in this case, the Town of Orangeville and minor sport organization. Both allocation and affiliation will become more evident as the details of the policy are considered. I'm going to discuss now the goals of allocation and what the outcomes of the policy look like. Equitable access and distribution of recreation facilities, establishing standards of play to balance supply and demand, balancing the requirements based on priority users, historical use, and consideration of new users. Why this policy update and review? There were numerous factors that were considered in the policy update review. The existing policy was implemented in 2017, and when the policy was written, there was not user group consultation as part of the process. Consultation, as we know, in this organization and to the Town of Orangeville and to our current council is very important, and I'm going to highlight what the process was as part of the policy development as I go through the presentation this evening. As well, we were looking for a policy that is specific to Orangeville and not a boilerplate policy that does not address the realities of our municipality. An update to the priority user categories that are logical and fit Orangeville user groups, and a policy that gives consideration to residency rates, and throughout the process, user groups were asked to report on this. The collection of data on facility usage, including historic, current, and future, provides a benchmark for the town's ongoing facility needs assessment. The review also gave specific consideration to historical precedent for community recreation leagues. 2 seasons ago, there was much debate with user groups on historical use, and one of the outcomes of discussions with those users and members of council was specific consideration on how to define this precedent. This policy does this. The review also considers growth of current user groups, again, how it relates to facility needs and future planning, as well as consideration of new organizations such as junior clubs and teams, and to ensure current users are not being displaced. And finally, inclusion of standards of play that define how spaces are used and the number of players or participants in that space, and how this is defined by provincial sport organizations for local clubs. In addition, a review of approximately 15 comparative municipal policies was completed, as well as municipal discussions on allocation. Our process to date, we started this in January, and I lived and breathed this policy, and if any of my colleagues are here in the room, I talked about allocation and affiliation a lot, which was exciting to me. The first thing we did back in January was a user group survey. We then connected with our minor sport groups and we completed focus groups. That was in February. We then held staff focus groups as well and had key stakeholders of our staff at the table to discuss what this allocation and affiliation would look like moving forward. Our report to council this evening for review and approval, and our implementation this fall. I wanted to give you some key survey data of what came out because the survey results were really quite exciting. Again, I was living and breathing allocation for a few months. We had a 78% response rate, which was fantastic numbers. Out of the 28 organizations that were surveyed, we had 22 of those organizations respond. We had 100% participation from our minor sports groups, which was phenomenal. They were very thoroughly engaged with this process. We held focus groups with all our minor sport groups. And some interesting data, 763 collective years of service. So we asked how long organizations had been doing what they're doing. 763 years. That says a lot about what happens here in Orangeville. Out of the organizations that responded, 6,250 participants, 79% of them were youth. And again, that 763 years of service, currently we have 6,250 people participating, again, almost 80% youth. Minor Soccer is the largest minor sports organization in Orangeville, serving the largest number of participants with just around 1,200 participants. And the average residency rate across all organizations is 87%. So again, out of those organizations, they're serving a large percentage of Orangeville residents. The next area is the development of the priority categories, and this speaks to the ranking of how we look at the supply and demand. It's very important to develop categories that were specific to Orangeville organizations and that are logical in their terminology. So our categories are as follows: Town of Orangeville program services and events, minor sports organizations, community recreation leagues, junior sports clubs and teams, boards of education, all including public, private, and post-secondary, and the final sixth category of commercial specialized program providers. I'd like to highlight a few of these categories just to give some explanation. Community recreation leagues is the one that I think I'd like to define for you. Those are grassroots organizations of like-minded sports enthusiasts that come together to play a sport and be active and social. Orangeville should be proud of the many groups like this, and through the review process, it was important to be sure that these groups were ranked properly. In addition, the historical precedent status has been written into the policy for many of those community organizations. And I'll highlight something about that in a couple of minutes. Junior clubs and teams is included to be sure that our existing junior clubs, such as the Orangeville Northmen, are ranked and provided with annual allocation, that any junior clubs looking to have a home base in Orangeville will be considered, but will be based on available vacant time. New clubs will be considered once the higher priority categories have been accommodated. A new junior club cannot displace an existing organization. For example, a junior hockey organization looking to have a franchise in Orangeville cannot displace our current minor hockey organizations and take away time from those groups. And one final point is our commercial specialized program provider. Those are groups that are generating revenue, and those groups are accommodated after all other user groups. Some policy highlights. The final policy for Council's consideration is specifically an Orangeville solution. The feedback and involvement from user groups has been essential to this process, and the involvement has been impressive and much appreciated. The policy includes specific and logical priority user categories. The standards of play is a formula-based approach to allocate facility time to user groups and has been developed with input from minor sports organizations based on the standards from those provincial sport organizations. Historical precedent has been developed for community recreation leagues, and leagues with 25 years or more at the time of this policy approval will receive this status. In addition, staff have worked with long-time rentals to ensure that the permit is not taken out in an individual's name, but rather a league-style group has been developed. And that happened throughout this last year as well. The policy also outlines historical tournaments and has a list of tournaments for each minor sport group. Minor sports group also receive affiliate benefits. So in terms of the affiliation benefits that are built in, the 20% reduction of primetime facility rental fees is the number one piece that minor sport groups receive. They receive the priority ranking second after the Town of Orangeville programs. They receive free use of a meeting room and atrium once per year. That can be for their annual general meeting or for registration or promotion of their activity. They receive staff liaison assistance from our wonderful facility booking team. And for minor sport groups, there's a series of meetings that are held throughout the year for those organizations to book their space and meet with other groups as well. They also receive promotion on town sources, so our digital information screens both exterior signs and interior signs, access to our live streaming services, which just started this year, and inclusion in banner and sponsorship advertising policies. You'll note that there's a few asterisks there. Those ones that have an asterisk are also available for consideration for junior clubs and teams and some commercial specialized program providers. So for example, the Orangeville Blitz may be able to access our live streaming services or inclusion in our banner and sponsorship policies as well. Just a little bit of Northman there on the screen for everybody. And thank you, Mayor Post and members of council for your time this evening and allowing me to provide an update. I felt it was important to give you an update on this extensive policy in person rather than just having you cruise through a very extensive policy. And I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Doherty. That was an excellent presentation. I know you and your team have done a lot of work on this, and I appreciate all the background that you've done on it. We do have some questions from council. I will start with Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ms. Doherty, very well done. I just want to thank you and your team. You guys have always been top-notch. As a past president of Orangeville Minor Hockey, it's always been a pleasure to work with you guys. Never had a bad meeting or anything like that, and I just want to say everything's always been very positive, and I really appreciate you and your staff. I don't have any questions. This is my first time actually not having to leave the room for something like this because of my involvement. But I just want to say thanks for all the work you've done. I know it's very stressful, lots of anxiety to get this done. We've had many meetings where we've sat across from each other, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and again, a very similar comment to Councillor Stevens. Thank you for all that you do, and I don't know how you juggle so many different balls with so many different organizations, but somehow you make it happen. The report itself highlighted something that I'm familiar with, and again, through my connection with Orangeville Minor Hockey, even minor soccer as well, unused burnt time. And this is kind of not to say a contentious word or words, but for the general public, can you explain a little bit about it very quickly? And more importantly, what is your plan to kind of alleviate the communication issue of what unburnt time is?
Ms. Doherty.
Through your Mayor Post to Councillor Andrews. Thank you for that question, Councillor Andrews. Through our municipal survey and our benchmarking, burnt time was one that came up regularly, and we did take a close look at that and obviously included it in the policy. Burnt time refers to time that is booked by an organization that they actually do not show up and use. It does happen, and I don't want to pick on anybody. I'll use an outdoor example, and I will use minor soccer. Minor soccer will book time for their rep games for a series of 8 weeks, for example, but 4 of those may be away games. But they need to book that time in advance. But what we're going to do now is we're going to work with them to look at how they can book that without burning the time. Because we have community recreation leagues and we have some commercial specialized program providers that are looking to use that time and frankly are accusing organizations of burning time and not using it. So we want to be able to support our minor sport groups, all of our organizations for that matter, to look at how we can plan that time in advance so that they're not burning time. Another example is rainout dates. We have community recreation leagues that are booking rainout dates in advance. So we're going to look at how we can change that process for next year as part of the policy.
Looking forward to that. I know that some of the organizations, primarily the recreational leaders of the recreational leagues, they'll reach out to some of us who have that connection and they'll say, they're trying to squeeze in, a certain time and they just can't get it because of whatever the reason. And then, this identifies clearly that there is some time potentially available. So I look forward to the implementation of the policy.
If I may add to that too, Mayor Post, We are also, through the policy, looking at defining seasonal use, and you'll notice the facility primers, which they're appendices to the policy, help us define our seasonal use for our minor sport groups based on the provincial sport organization and the direction from those governing bodies, but also to our community recreation leagues. You may not get 24 weeks. You may only get 20 weeks. And we will work with those organizations to ensure that they have a fulsome league to be able to run, but that it's realistic in terms of the timeframes that are available.
Was there any additional questions from members of council? Seeing none. We do have the attached report. The recommendation is that report CMS 2025-005, facility allocation and affiliation policy be received, and that the registered minor sport groups fee reduction policy approved by council on February 14th, 2011 be repealed, and that the facility and venue allocation policy be approved by council on that was approved by council on March 20th, 2017 be repealed, and that the recreation facility allocation and affiliation policy attached to CMS 2025-005 report be approved. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Andrews, last chance for questions. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. Doherty. Appreciate your time. We will now move into section 14, which is our consent agenda. The following items have been compiled under the consent agenda to facilitate a single vote for council consideration. Council may remove any items from the consent agenda for individual consideration. I have a couple of requests for removal of items. Councillor Andrews, I will start with you.
Thank you very much. Very kind with the opportunity to request 14.1.3 Highlands Youth for Christ Community Match Fund grant application.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Prendergast.
I would like to pull 14.1.9, the Clean Yards Bylaw, 14.1.10, Framework for the Tree Preservation Bylaw, and 14.1.11, Pollinator Protection Plan.
Thank you very much. Was there any others from any members of council? I have two that I would like to pull, which is 14.1.4 and 14.1.5. Those are the two that I had previously declared conflict on, so we will need to vote on those separately, and I will leave the room for those ones. If there's nothing else then, the recommendation is that all consent agenda items for the current council meeting listed under 14.1 staff reports, 14.2 correspondence, and 14.3 committee board minutes be received or approved as presented, with the exception of the items removed for individual consideration, which once again are 14.1.3, 14.1.4, 14.1.5, 14.1.9, 14.1.10, and 14.1.11. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We will move into 14.1.3, Highlands Youth for Christ, the Community Matching Fund Grant application. The recommendation is that report CMS 2025-13, Highlands Youth for Christ, Community Matching Fund Grant application be received, and that council approve an increase to the allowable funding from $5,000 to $15,000 on a one-time basis, and that council approve the Community Matching Fund Grant application from Youth Unlimited / Youth for Christ and distribution of budgeted funds in the amount of $15,000. Can I have a mover and a seconder to put it on the floor, and then I will turn it to Councillor Andrews. Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Stevens. Councillor Andrews, I will turn it to you.
Thank
you. I've got, oh, there we go.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Andrews,
There we go. All right. Thank you very much, Your Worship. Comment. I want to thank staff, I guess in this particular case, Ms. Savage, for the detailed report. I'm so pleased to see this come to the table. Having had the opportunity of being on site, not only with Ms. Savage, I think Mayor Post and I were also on site, and if I recall, we had some other staff that were there for a variety of other reasons. We were on site for, I think, the Out of the Cold program, but I did have the privilege with I always call him Pastor Kerry Duffield. I guess I'm not sure if that happens to be the hat he's wearing when he's with Highland Youth for Christ. He did take me around the back, and I will say that this will be a significant improvement in its close proximity to the senior center too as well. It is going to be a game changer for the organization. I am so pleased to see this come through. I was really curious to hear about the fact that we have not had applications where you have had funding available and groups have not stepped forward. So I'm in full support of this one-time exception to support their need, because again, we understand the cost for that remediation and so on and so forth, but it is going to be a game changer for that organization, and I am absolutely in full support of it. But Ms. Savage, again, thank you for bridging all of this and doing whatever you needed to do to get this application support for the organization, but thank you.
Was there any other questions from members of council? Okay, there's a mover and a seconder, so all in favor. And that is carried. I will now turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Taylor for 14.1.4 and 14.1.5. You may want to actually take my physical chair because my mic works all the time.
Okay, thank you, everyone. What we're going to do now is with Mayor Post out of the room, we're going to offer free food and drinks for everyone and have a 30-minute recess. Okay, maybe not. If everyone could give me a few moments as we get into the report. I see Councillor Sherwood, you're in the queue. Are you in the queue for the next item? You are. Okay, excellent. We have a new system here tonight that I need to get used to, so I have not used it previously, which is why I'm sitting in the mayor's chair. So we will move to 14.1.4, Town of Orangeville BIA Memo of Understanding, and the recommendations that report CMS 2025-014, Town of Orangeville and Orangeville BIA Memo of Understanding be received. Can I get a motion to get this on the floor? Councillor Andrews, Councillor Pendergrast. Does anyone want to speak to this item? Councillor Sherwood, and I think, you've watched, have you? Councillor McIntosh, did I say next councillor, or do I click on here? Next councillor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I didn't want to talk, I just wanted to see you struggle through that. Okay, I'm done. Well, that was entertaining, by the way.
Oh, good, thank you.
I just wanted to say how pleased I was to see this, and I want to thank staff, Katrina Lemire and Allison of the BIA. This is great to see this MOU. I think we've always had a great relationship with the BIA, and I know they feel the same way with staff. So I want to thank both of you for coming up with this great MOU. I think it's fabulous and sure helps clarify everything, like who's responsible for what.
Yeah, I would completely agree. So if we could, Councillor Sherwood sat on the BIA before myself, and now here I am, and I saw that need too and was waiting for this to come. I think it's a really important document, and it's comprehensive. So thank you to staff and to you, Allison, for the work that you did in making this happen. Okay, I see nobody else in this fancy-dancy queue, so all in favor? Yes, and that carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. So we move on to item 14.1.5, the 2025 Business Improvement Area Levy Report, CPS 2025-034, and the recommendations are that the report CPS 2025-034, 2025 Business Improvement Area BIA Levy Report be received, and that Council adopt the 2025 BIA levies as proposed for the 2025 fiscal year. Can I have a mover on this item? Councillor McIntosh, Councillor Stevens, any comments or questions? Seeing none? Okay, all in favor of this? That passes unanimously. And we'll get Mayor Post to come back and resume the chair. I think I'm going to continue to sit here, though. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, everyone.
I'm sure you did. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we will move to 14.1.9, the Clean Yards Bylaw. The recommendation is that report CPS 2025-59, Clean Yards Bylaw final be received, and that council pass a Clean Yards Bylaw for the town of Orangeville. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Stevens. Councillor Prendergast, if you could just get into the queue, and I'll turn it to you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Post. I just wanted to pull this item just to reiterate or reconfirm that should the pollinator protection plan be approved tonight by council, those with naturalized lawns or native pollinator gardens as lawns would be found non-compliant under the new Clean Yards Bylaw. And it is complaint-based, but would these homeowners be exempt in the interim, providing the pollinator protection plan gets approved?
Who would like to take that one? Ms. Martel?
Thank you. Through you, so I will say this, that the property standards bylaw takes months to go through the process of enforcement. The Clean Yards bylaw does take a little bit less time. And I will also advise that our bylaw enforcement officers never use ticketing or enforcement as their first measure. It's always education and discussion. So we don't anticipate, as discussions has already happened between our department and sustainability department, we've already started the discussions on how to amend the property standards bylaw to make those exemptions a reality. So we would work with an education approach in the interim.
Ms. Prendergast? Councillor Prendergast, good? Oh, there you go, Councillor Prendergast. You're good. Okay, stop pressing the button. Get in the queue. I touch nothing. There we go.
Sorry, my mistake.
New technology, we're getting there.
I just press it till it works, and that's not the case here. Thank you so much. That really clarifies things. And I know nobody wants a $350 ticket for trying to do the right thing for the planet. And I know all of our policies are catching up with each other. It's just reassuring to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Everybody's good? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We will now move into the framework for the tree preservation bylaw. The recommendation is that INS 2024-24 framework report number 1 for the tree preservation bylaw be received, and that council direct staff to proceed with report number 2 for the tree preservation bylaw to establish the framework for rolling out the bylaw and report back to council by September 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor Andrews. I will turn it over to Councillor Prendergast first.
Okay, thank you. To start off, I want to be clear that I support the development of a tree preservation bylaw in principle. Protecting the urban canopy is essential for our community's health, climate resilience, and long-term sustainability. However, if we are going to ask residents to take on new responsibilities, we also need to hold ourselves to the same account, if not higher standards. One consistent piece of feedback that I get since being elected in 2022 have been concerns about the town's trees, the boulevard trees, how they're planted, how they're maintained, when they're planted, if it's the right time of year, if it's too hot. Just recently, I've received 3 complaints about trees being planted during a heat wave, which are now dead. So a question that I had was, is this partly because of our reliance on contracted work without consistent oversight? As we move forward, perhaps this bylaw should be, well, it needs to be practical and balanced with clear communication and education as its foundation. But it's also important that it be implemented in a way that does not create significant financial impacts for the town or residents. Maybe it's time to consider a more cohesive urban forestry plan where planting, maintenance, and bylaw enforcement all fall under one clear area of accountability and responsibility. It seems like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing sometimes. And we have people that are really knowledgeable about urban forestry, but sometimes subcontractors that seem to have no idea about trees. So there's like a missing piece that I would like to see addressed in this bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Mr. Koselleck?
Oh, through your worship. For the trees, I guess there were some planted a little bit before this heat wave. We had cool, wet spring in April and May, so they weren't able to get in a lot of areas because it was too wet. So they were doing the planting. Some of it may be planted a little bit later in the year than normal. But we do have a 2-year warranty, so any trees that do pass away, they're replaced at no cost to the town. We have it in the contract, the contractors to water them, so there's no cost to the town if they need to be replaced as part of it.
Councillor Prendergast, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess my comment is it's not just about cost, right? These are trees. And it's about the appropriateness of the tree in the right place, and people having the wherewithal who call themselves tree professionals planting during a heat wave. And then my question is, why are we paying them money to do that? It doesn't matter if it's covered under warranty, it's wasteful, right? And I just think that our whole philosophy should be respectful of that, and we should aim not to waste anything. So I just find that flippant disregard for our property and our money and the environment a bit disrespectful. And I'll leave it at that, but I think that the whole tone of this council is supportive of sustainability, but there are just like a couple of cogs that need readjusting. That's all.
CAO Smith?
Yeah, I'll just comment and support the position of the councillor and staff. I think that I've communicated to council that we're developing standard operating procedures on a number of things to make us more consistent, more reliable, to make things flow more smoothly. The feedback that you've given, I don't really see the connection directly with the tree preservation bylaw, but I think your feedback and the feedback that was shared through you is appropriate. And I know Tim and I have spoken about how we incorporate those things into our daily work. So our SOP on tree planting will be not during heat waves or whatever that specific thing is. So it's two separate things, although connected.
Thank you very much. Councillor Andrews.
I think that, Councillor, are you okay? Okay. Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to continue very quickly this conversation, and this is based on the report. And by the way, Mr. Koselleck, the staff member who put together this report, this was excellent. Really, really well done. I think the angle that I wanted to take from a tree preservation perspective is that of the homeowner. And I take a look at a number of the neighbors I've had. I know that even Deputy Mayor Taylor and I have spoken about, how much it costs to actually remove a tree from your property, especially if it's dead or, some destruction has taken place. And it falls on the liability of the property owner. The one piece that was extracted, and again, more of a comment than anything else, the piece that I extracted from this was the possibility of education. And, I take a look at some of the new residents, people who have decided to plant arbitrarily a tree in their backyard, not thinking about the fact that that tree is going to grow over a period of time, and or how close they put it to their property, their house itself, and or how close they put it to the fence. And then 10 years later, all of a sudden, we have an ice storm, or we have, sure, it looks great, and the tree canopy has improved, but unfortunately, what it has done, it has caused potential disruption to the next door neighbor, possible destruction to the foundation. I mean, Mr. Koselleck, you and I have actually spoken about that, the proximity of a tree on somebody's front lawn. It's a great idea, but how long is that going to take before it becomes possibly a destructive part, and then it has to be torn down? We even spoke about this with the idea of insurance, and there was a communication, if I'm not mistaken, that went to property owners about, of course, their line from the boulevard to the house, the water line, and vice versa. Some people arbitrarily don't even do a locate, and they put a tree in. So I think that, the piece that I extracted is more the education, which would be really, really helpful as part of the next steps of this.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Was there any other questions? Councillor Prendergast, I had seen that you had requested to speak as well. Go ahead.
I would like to speak to the connectedness of my comment, CAO Smith. Sometimes when a new bylaw comes into place, and we saw in the report, there might be an FTE implication. So I'm just simply indicating that we are spending a lot of money on contractors who are doing a poor job. And perhaps one day, and I'm not saying within this term of council, it could be looked at to have someone who takes care of and is knowledgeable about the trees in this town. And if we are asking residents to do that on their property, perhaps that's something we should also consider.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions or comments from council? Okay, with that, we do have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We will move now into Pollinator Protection Plan. The recommendation is that report INS 2025-38 Pollinator Protection Plan be received, and that staff draft the 2026 budget to accommodate $6,000 for the pollinator garden, utilizing savings found during budget process that would otherwise reduce the budget for a pollinator workshop and for engagement and education with the public, and that staff prepare a draft pollinator policy for review and present suggested amendments to policy, bylaws, and procedures in a report to council in accordance with the timelines in the Pollinator Protection Plan. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to put that one on the floor? Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor. I will turn it over to Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. I want to start by recognizing again the recent acknowledgement that Orangeville received from the CVC about our environmental leadership. The proposed pollinator policy, the demonstrative pollinator garden, and the tree preservation bylaw are exactly the kinds of practical incremental steps that build on and strengthen the recognition of our work towards the health and resilience of our community. And most importantly, we can proceed without any additional budgetary impact, as costs will be covered through existing allocations, grants, and in-kind support. I see that Mrs. McCauley, our environmental specialist, is on the line, and I was going to ask her if she could speak to the importance of the educational component of our initiative, including our flagship pollinator demonstrative garden, which we hope to launch through this process. Ms. McCauley?
Ms. McCauley, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Post. Yes, so the goal with the municipal pollinator garden is to act as an example to showcase what a pollinator habitat could look like. We don't just want one pollinator habitat in town. We really want to have a pollinator corridor. So what that means is we have connectedness through multiple habitats in town, because we know that pollinator species, their habitat range from 500 meters to 1,500 meters. So if we encourage other people and private homeowners to also include pollinating species on their property, then we can encourage the distribution, the spatial distribution of pollinators across our jurisdiction. So this is the real goal with the municipal pollinator garden, is that it can act as an engagement piece, something community members can look at. They can see that a pollinator garden, can be designed. It doesn't look like a field of weeds. It can be a designed landscaping piece that they could incorporate into their property as well. The second piece with this, within the pollinator protection plan, is to host a community engagement event. So that could be put on by CBC, and they teach a workshop that's dedicated to residences or businesses who wish to incorporate pollinator habitat on their own property. So they teach them what species to use, how to plant them, how to take care of them, how to maintain them.
Thank you, Ms. McCauley. Councillor Prendergast?
Thank you, Mayor Post, and thank you, Ms. McCauley. The report that you prepared was very detailed, and I think it really adequately summarized the importance of education. And running this workshop sounds like a fantastic opportunity to further engage residents in protecting our pollinators. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Prendergast. Deputy Mayor Taylor, you are next. Hold on just 1 sec. 1 second. Oh, can you press? There you go, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So my question is, I wasn't going to comment on this item. My counterpart here seems to have it all covered on behalf of council, so thank you for that. But what I was curious about is, this isn't my area's expertise, but I do like to understand how things connect. And there was conversation earlier tonight about we don't look after these gardens, we're not paying attention to them, and yet we're going to put the $6,000 out. Like it feels to me, and again, I'm not the environmentalist on here. I certainly care about the environment, but it feels like we shouldn't be doing this because we're not looking after it. If that's truly the truth, I don't know. But if we're not, I'd prefer we just didn't do, and we shouldn't pass this if that's the case. So I'm curious what we should do here.
Ms. Savage, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Mayor Post, Deputy Mayor Taylor. I think that the pollinator garden and the horticultural society gardens, they serve two different purposes. The maintenance levels are different. The requirements around a pollinator garden, which my colleague, Specialist McCauley, was informing me of this evening, is less than what I would say would be for a flower or shrub bed. I think that there's room in this town for both. We just need to develop a plan where we can resource them accordingly. I don't think that one should be at the expense of another.
Thank you. Councillor Sherwood?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know if this is going to go directly to Councillor Prendergast or not, but I too have a little bit of difficulty allocating $6,000 for a pollinator garden when our gardens at different crescents throughout town aren't being maintained, as good as they could be. The $6,000 could be allocated towards a summer student who's, can maybe look after the garden beds, which I think are very important to take care of. So I'm glad that you're not really asking for the money now, that this gives us time to think at budget time about, this allocation. However, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I heard you say that we could do the pollinator garden with support of other grants and stuff, so we wouldn't be needing $6,000. Did I catch you saying that, Councillor Prendergast?
Okay, so the cost of the garden itself is $2,500. The approximate cost of the educational in-service from the CVC is approximately $1,500 to $2,000. It needs to be budgeted. The sign will be approximately $500, and it is educational in purpose. So those are the approximate cost breakdowns. There is a clear distinction between an ornamental flower bed, let's say outside the front of Alder, and an educational demonstrative garden set up with the purpose of almost acting as a third space for people to meet. They can talk about plants and bees. It can be a nature place. It will be close to 2 schools, West Side, and it will be close to, why am I forgetting the name of that school just down the street from West Side? My mistake. But the cost is going to be absorbed in the current budget. So that's something that also Sustainable Orangeville can take a look at, perhaps taking ownership of the CVC portion for the education, because we do have money earmarked for education within our budget. And also signage could be something that Sustainable Orangeville could manage. Essentially, it would be the repurposing of $2,500, which would otherwise be used to purchase plantings for the town. They would just be directed for this purpose, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Can you shut off your mic, Councillor? Councillor Sherwood.
So just to follow up, Your Worship. So you're trying to proceed with this year using funds. For some reason, I'm not grasping this, because I'm reading the report that's saying to bring it to the 2026 budget, but you're talking about doing it now using sustainable funds or whatever. But then I'm also thinking, let me just finish before I get cut off here. We have lots of naturalized lands all throughout the whole town. Can we not just expand on those? Like, they're pollinating, are they not? So I'm wondering, why do we have the need for a new one? Is there a plan for it to be in a specific place when we have all these naturalization areas that are already doing that, in effect?
Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you. There is a plan. It's going to be on Gooseberry Street, where we've held our last 2 Sustainable Orangeville tree plantings with the CVC. It is becoming a renaturalized area along the Mill Creek, and this is where we were planning on putting it. There's ample parking, and it's easy access, it's accessible for residents, and it would be a place people could meet and gather. And we could further promote Orangeville being a bee city and further promote that recognition. Should this council not do this, we'll find another way. But, you know, this is something that has essentially a nominal cost, but a huge payoff with education, community engagement. There was recently a pollinator garden planted by Choices Youth Shelter through donations from community members. If we can start advertising, it's possible that that amount will be significantly reduced if we can get community members to donate plants that we need, et cetera, et cetera. But for that to happen and for us to start advertising, council would need to pass it first. It really is a nominal cost in the grand scheme of things, $2,500 for a garden, and Sustainable Orangeville likely would absorb the other costs for the sign and education. And we can also, with council's approval, should this move forward, we would then be able to perhaps apply for grants. And having this garden would also then make us eligible for other grant opportunities down the road. So that's another thing. As we start making these incremental improvements with our policy, like with the Pollinator Protection Plan, it enables us to apply for more grants down the road, which I'm finding is a bit of an issue because it's a hard time proving that we're already making environmental strides without having it in policy.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. I think this is a great step forward. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
I was going to touch the button. So first of all, thank you for your passion tonight. I think this is great. I see how much you think this is valuable, and that makes me want to support what you're saying and doing, and also out of the respect for you and your knowledge. That said, I don't get this. I really don't. you know, Councillor Sherwood, you tried to tie this to other things in the town. And I've learned in politics you don't do that. Like you don't, hey, we can't have a nice arena because you're spending all that money on the roads. They're not connected. They don't mean anything. And I assume this is where it's going to be too, that it's not connected. But it does bother me. Like, we don't do a good job on so many things. We've done a much better job this year on cutting the grass and maintaining the town. But on Broadway right now, we've got weeds growing up through the trees, on the boulevard trees, and it looks terrible. I would suggest that we still don't do a good job on other things that we should be doing a good job on. And it makes me think, and again, this is where we shouldn't tie it, but why should I spend the $6,000 on a pollinator garden that sounds like we're not looking after anyway, when we're also not looking after these other things? And I think it's probably a bigger project. So just to be clear, I'll support this because I trust you, I trust your passion, and if you hadn't spoken so eloquently, I wouldn't. But I do think we have avenues that we still need to address in terms of how we're looking after our natural assets. And I'm not sure we're all the way to Bright. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Was there any other questions from council? If not, okay, I will call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. I will now turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Taylor because we are going into notices of motion prior to meeting, and I do have one, so I will turn it over to Deputy Mayor.
Okay, you're going to run the show. So this is item 15. We have a notice of motion prior to meeting, and this notice of motion is for Mayor Post, and it's elect respect resolution. And Mayor Post, I'll turn it to you to share your notice of motion.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Taylor. And thank you, Council. I'm excited to bring this one forward. This is a resolution that actually came out of the City of Burlington from Mayor Marianne Mead Ward. She's very passionate about this work and asked that councils across the province consider supporting this. And this really talks about a healthy democracy and making sure that our policies and our thoughts and our commitment as a council is to continue to be respectful and have respectful debate across our own table, as well as within our social media channels. We know that when we see disrespect and misinformation spread either in person or across social media channels, it does deter folks from running for council. It can be a big difficulty. And I also want to acknowledge that when we choose to elect respect, we do also do that on behalf of our staff. Our staff are also subject to misinformation and some really horrible harassment when they are just simply trying to do their jobs. So this motion, I'm really passionate about. I will read it out. It is very long, so bear with me. And I will ask for a seconder when I'm finished reading it. Whereas democracy is healthy when everyone is able to participate fully and safely and contribute to the well-being of their community. And whereas we are witnessing the dissolution of democratic discourse and respectful debate across all levels of government and in neighboring jurisdictions. And whereas Ontario's municipally elected officials are dealing with increasingly hostile, unsafe work environments facing threats and harassment. And whereas social media platforms have exacerbated disrespectful dialogue, negative commentary, and toxic engagement, which disincentivizes individuals, especially women and candidates from diverse backgrounds, from running for office. And whereas better decisions are made when democracy is respectful and constructive, and the voices of diverse genders, identities, ethnicities, races, sexual orientations, ages, and abilities are heard and represented around municipal council tables. And whereas the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's Healthy Democracy Project has identified concerning trends with fewer people voting in local elections and running for municipal office. And whereas in 2024, female elected representatives from across Halton formed a group called HER, Halton Elected Representatives, which pledged to speak out against harassment and negativity in politics and called on elected officials to uphold the highest standards of conduct. And whereas HER Halton has launched a campaign called Elect Respect to promote the importance of healthy democracy and safe, inclusive, respectful work environments for all elected officials that encourages individuals to participate in the political process. And whereas on June 5th, 2025, the Canadian Association of Feminist Parliamentarians parliamentarians launched a nonpartisan parliamentary civility pledge to encourage all parliamentarians to commit to end workplace harassment and increase civility on Parliament Hill, modeled after the pledge developed in Halton by representatives of HER. Now therefore be it resolved that Orangeville Council supports the Elect Respect pledge and commits to A, treat others with respect in all spaces, public, private, and online. B, reject and call out harassment, abuse, and personal attacks. C, focus debate on ideas and policies, not personal attacks. D, help build a supportive culture where people of all backgrounds feel safe to run for office and hold office. E, call on relevant authorities to ensure the protection of elected officials who face abuse or threats. And F, model integrity and respect by holding one another to the highest standards of conduct. And that Orangeville Council calls on elected officials, organizations, and community members to support Elect Respect campaign and sign the online pledge at www.electrespect.ca, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Ontario's Big City Mayors, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the mayors and regional chairs of Ontario, relevant MPs and MPPs, regional police, and the Ontario Provincial Police, as well as the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And I would love a seconder.
Okay, could you, I'm sorry, a few people missed that. Could you repeat it? Councillor Andrews, you're going to second that motion? Thank you very much. Anybody like to offer comment on this? No? Seeing none? I'd like to offer comment. I think it's great. Candidly, I have seen abuse of my female colleagues up here in particular, things that have happened. I have experienced abuse that is disgusting, quite frankly, through social media challenges. So I certainly would support this wholeheartedly. I do think it's sad that we have to pass something like this. And I also want to say I'm grateful to my council colleagues and to staff. This is a very respectful workplace, and I've seen councils that do not have that, and we are very fortunate here, and so I'm just fortunate to be with all of you as we go through all of this together. So anyway, kudos to you, Mayor Post. Seeing that we've got a seconder, no one else wants to speak to this? You would like to speak to this? Okay, CAO Smith, please.
Yeah, thank you, and through you, Chair, and I echo all of the comments made, and I want to particularly acknowledge Mayor Post for her comments about staff. Staff in Orangeville are abused on social media. There's gossip, there's slander, there's people that stir the pot knowingly, trying to take away from the professionalism of staff. And in the municipal sector, much like elected officials, we want to find the best staff possible. We want young people to come in and when they look at social media channels in Orangeville and many other communities, it's a factor that they consider. So I'm delighted, Mayor Post, thank you again for acknowledging the trials and tribulations of particularly social media and staff.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? Thank you very much, CAO Smith. All in favor? And that passes unanimously. And I'll turn the mic back to yourself, Mayor Post.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Was there any notices of motion at meeting today? Councillor Prendergast, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Post. At the next regular meeting of council, I will be bringing forward a motion seeking council's support to direct staff to pursue grant funding to undertake an invasive species baseline study. This initiative will help advance wetland conservation, enhance flood mitigation of up to 38%, and strengthen climate resilience in the town of Orangeville. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. We will look forward to that at our next regular meeting of council. Was there any additional notices of motion? Okay, we will move into announcements. Was there announcements today? Councillor Andrews, we'll start with you.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. We haven't had an opportunity to get together, at least in this formal setting, for a couple of weeks now. And so 2 weeks ago, we had the opportunity of having Canada Day. I want to thank the entire Parks and Recreation staff for an outstanding Canada Day celebration at the Alders Street Complex. It was tempting to go down the big slide that was held in the green rink, but I just got a little scared. I just thought it was a little too high for my liking, and I think that the young kids that were about 5 and 6 didn't want me butting in line. But again, the staff, everyone that was involved, it was really, really well done. I know that there was an unfortunate circumstance with our fireworks that has been communicated to the general public. We look forward to, of course, next year's great Canada Day celebration. And the next one is, of course, the Rotary Rib Fest, which is coming up. I know that we probably all will be attending at some point on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that is going to be held, of course, at the Alder Street Complex as well.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Worship. Following up on Councillor Andrews' talk there, I also want to thank the Orangeville Legion, who did a fantastic job, as they do every year. So thanks to the Orangeville Legion.
Thank you. Seeing no other announcements, I do have one quick one. I wanted to do a recognition for Madison Hartway, a local athlete. To provide just a little bit of background, Madison swam with the Orangeville Otters from about the age of 8 to 15. She is an Ontario record holder in 50-meter breaststroke, a Florida state record holder, and achieved Olympic qualifying times at the age of 14 in Canada. She's recently been training in Sarasota for the last 2.5 years with some other Canadian athletes and will be attending the University of Alabama this coming year, where she's earned a full scholarship. She is a graduate of Westside High School and a very proud resident of Orangeville. Earlier this month in Victoria, BC, Madison competed at the Canadian Olympic Trials, where she was the junior gold medalist in the 50-meter breaststroke and the 100-meter breaststroke races. So these swims alone in British Columbia earned her a spot on the Canadian team, and she will be competing in Romania at the Junior World Aquatics Championship from August 19th to 24th. Madison currently holds the fastest female breaststroke times in Canada for 18 and under in both the 50 and 100-meter breaststroke, and she is ranked second this year in the 200-meter breaststroke. Her goal is to help Team Canada stand on the podium this summer, as she will be racing in those two events as well as some team relay events. So I really just wanted, on behalf of council, to wish Madison all the best in her competitions, and we're very proud of you, Madison, and one of our Orangeville Otters. Very exciting. Was there any other announcements? We are good. So we are going to go into bylaws. The recommendation is that all bylaws for the current council meeting listed under 18 bylaws be read 3 times and finally passed. I will be removing 18.5 as I do need to declare a conflict on that. So we will start with items 18.1 through 18.4. If I can have a mover and a seconder for those items, please. Councillor Prendergast and Deputy Mayor, any questions or comments? All in favor? That is carried. I will turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Worship. So 18.5 is a bylaw to provide for the levy and collection of special charge upon rateable property in the Orangeville business improvement area, and that was item 14.1.5. Could I have a mover to do that? Councillor McIntosh, Councillor Stevens. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Yes. Very good, and we'll have Mayor Post come back.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And now we just need a motion to adjourn. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Stevens. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for joining us tonight.